Have you ever read or watched a story and felt chills not because of the dark forests or ancient curses, but because of a character so sinister it felt unsettlingly real? For more than 20 years now, I've been exploring the darkest corners of storytelling, both as a writer and an avid student. And in this video, I'll show you what makes villains linger in your mind long after the last page is turned. By the end, you'll know the secrets behind crafting villains that not only are creepy, but also characters that your readers can't help but be drawn to, even when they want to look away. Think about it. What is it that truly makes a villain send shivers down your spine? It's obviously more than just a dark cloak and a menacing glare. Creepy villains somehow manage to tap into our deepest fears and uncertainties in a variety of ways. One key characteristic is their unpredictability. A creepy villain's actions and motives are often shrouded in mystery, making it impossible to predict their next move. While not a fantasy story, Hannibal Lecter from The Silence of the Lambs is a perfect example for this. His calm demeanor and sophisticated mannerisms contrast with his gruesome actions as a serial killer who eats his victims, making him both fascinating and terrifying. Creepy villains are also masters of psychological manipulation. They play mind games with both the protagonists and the readers. Pennywise from Stephen King's It comes to mind here. His ability to exploit children's deepest fears and transform them into their worst nightmares makes him profoundly disturbing. It's like discovering your favorite teddy bear from childhood is secretly recording all your conversations. That's innocent loss in the creepiest way possible right there. Now, the presence of a creepy villain can often change the atmosphere of a scene as well. They bring a sense of dread and tension whenever they appear, heavily affecting the mood of the story, and sometimes even managing to make your own skin crawl. Consider the White Walkers from Game of Thrones, for example. Their mere presence brings a chilling and ominous feeling whenever they are shown, which creates an atmosphere of impending doom. A mysterious backstory is another hallmark of creepy villains then. Their past traumas or dark secrets, gradually revealed, add to their enigma and make them even more complex and haunting. Voldemort from Harry Potter embodies this perfectly. His transformation from Tom Riddle to the Dark Lord is a gripping tale of loss, fear, and a quest for power that adds to his creepy persona. And lastly, we have the moral ambiguity. Creepy villains often operate in shades of grey, blurring the lines between right and wrong. This makes them more realistic and relatable, even as they horrify us. The Joker from Batman is such a compelling yet unsettling character exactly because of his chaotic nature and lack of clear motives. Understanding these characteristics is the first step in crafting your own creepy villains. But why are they so effective in engaging readers? What makes readers drawn to such dark characters despite the fear they evoke? Well, creepy villains don't just scare us. The best ones manage to fascinate us, and understanding why can elevate your storytelling to new heights. So let me share with you the psychological impact these characters have on readers. Creepy villains tap into our most primal emotions. Fear, for one, is a powerful tool here, and when wielded effectively, it creates an unforgettable experience for your audience. Think about the last time you read a scene that made your heart race. That adrenaline rush is what keeps readers hooked, turning pages well past midnight. But it's not just fear that makes creepy villains memorable, it's the balance between horror and intrigue. This delicate dance between repulsion and fascination is what makes characters like Hannibal Lecter and Pennywise linger in our minds for so long. When we encounter these villains, we're compelled to understand what makes them tick. It's like staring into an abyss and wondering what's staring back. Imagine a villain who's always one step ahead, whose motives are inscrutable, and who uses fear as a weapon. This unpredictability keeps readers on edge at all times. They never know what to expect next, and that's exactly what makes the experience so gripping. It's like riding a roller coaster in the dark. You're thrilled and terrified at the same time, because you can't see what's coming. Well, at least some people would be thrilled, because I hate roller coasters, dark or not. But let's talk about the role of fascination for a moment. There's a strange allure to characters who embody our deepest fears. This fascination is often rooted in the complexity and depth of the villain's character. Take Gollum from The Lord of the Rings. His split personality and tragic backstory evoke a mix of fear, pity, and curiosity. He can be scareful at times, for sure, yet there still are moments where we can't help but feel drawn to his struggle. Balancing horror and intrigue is crucial for this. Too much horror without depth can make a villain seem one-dimensional. On the other hand, too much complexity without fear can make them lose their edge. The key is to weave these elements together seamlessly. Here's where it gets interesting. Our brains are wired to seek out and remember things that evoke strong emotions. This is why creepy villains stay with us. They create emotional peaks in the story, moments that stand out vividly in our memory. When readers feel a powerful emotional connection, whether it's fear, fascination, or even empathy, they are more likely to remember and talk about your story. So why do creepy villains have such a profound impact on us? Because they make us feel. They engage our emotions in a way that's intense and unforgettable. By balancing horror with intrigue and adding layers of complexity, you can create villains that not only terrify, but also fascinate your readers. And now that we've explored the psychological impact of these villains, let me show you some crucial elements of creating them. Picture this: you're deep into a fantasy novel, completely immersed, as a sinister character enters the scene. Nothing overtly terrifying happens, yet you can't shake the feeling of unease. Why is that? Great creepy villains don't just lurk in the shadows. They hide in the spaces between words. They create fear through silence, through what's hinted at but never fully revealed. Imagine a villain in a dimly lit tavern, slowly stirring their drink while locking eyes with the hero. No threats, no violence, just an unsettling calm. Your mind immediately starts racing, wondering what they are planning. Now think about Gollum from The Lord of the Rings again. Sure, his appearance is unsettling, but it's the way he talks to himself, the hints of his past, and his unpredictable behavior that really can get under your skin. Creating a truly creepy villain involves mastering the art of subtext. Instead of spilling everything out, let your villain's actions and unspoken intentions do the talking. It's like seeing a dark cloud on the horizon. You don't know when or where the storm will hit, but the anticipation is enough to make you uneasy. Consider the White Walkers from Game of Thrones again here. Their silence, their relentless march, and the sparse clues about their origins and motives create a looming dread that's far more terrifying than explicit horror. When crafting your creepy villain, think about what they don't say as much as what they do. Use subtext to hint at a dark past, a twisted motive, or an impending threat. Let your readers' imaginations do the heavy lifting. By leaving gaps for them to fill, you engage their minds, making the horror personal and inescapable. This one is a bit far off, but it's like getting a text from your mother saying, "We need to talk." You know something is up, but you have no idea what. And it's that unknown that makes you uncomfortable. Now, having said that, luckily I never got such a text from my own mother so far. But as you build your story, slowly peel back the layers. Reveal bits and pieces of your villain's true nature, but never all at once. Keep the mystery alive and your readers will be hooked, eager to uncover the full extent of the horror. In the end, it's the fear of the unknown that keeps us turning pages, peeking around corners, and jumping at shadows. By mastering subtext in all kinds of ways, you can create villains that haunt your readers long after the final chapter. It's like walking into your bedroom and seeing a spider disappear under the bed. You know it's there, but not knowing where it is or when it will reappear keeps you on edge. Now, the impact of a villain, especially creepy ones, is not necessarily limited to just themselves. Have you ever felt uneasy just by the description of a villain's lair? That's no accident. The environment and symbols associated with a villain can significantly enhance their creepiness, creating an atmosphere that keeps readers on edge. Think about walking into a dark, decrepit castle. The walls are damp, the air is thick with decay, and every corner seems to whisper secrets. Now imagine a villain living here. This setting alone speaks volumes about their sinister nature, even before they say a word or even appear for the first time. Consider Sauron's Mordor in The Lord of the Rings. The land is barren, filled with volcanic ash and dark skies. Mordor isn't just a location, it's a reflection of Sauron's corrupt and destructive essence. By using settings to reflect their villain's personality, you can create a sense of unease that permeates every scene. For example, a dark forest with twisted trees can evoke feelings of fear and isolation. Details like a creaky door or walls adorned with ominous symbols can heighten this sense of dread. Symbols are powerful tools in storytelling. They convey complex ideas and emotions without a single word spoken. Dracula's castle, for example, is filled with symbols of death and decay, like bats, cobwebs, and the ever-present darkness. Each element adds to the atmosphere of dread, reinforcing Dracula's malevolent presence. Now here are a few tips for using symbolism effectively. First, choose relevant symbols that resonate with your villain's traits or backstory. For instance, a villain obsessed with immortality might be surrounded by decaying flora, symbolizing the decay they fear. Next, use these symbols consistently throughout your story to build a cohesive and unsettling atmosphere. And lastly, subtlety works here as well. Don't overuse the symbols. Subtle hints can be more powerful than blatant displays, allowing readers to piece together the horror themselves. By carefully crafting your setting and incorporating symbolism, you can enhance the creepiness of your villains without relying solely on their actions or dialogue. So next time you're writing your villain, think about where they live and what symbols surround them. Use these tools to create a setting that's as haunting and unforgettable as the villain themselves. This way, you're not just telling your readers about the villain's evil, you're making them feel it in every shadow and every rustle of decaying leaves. Now, if you found anything useful in the video so far, please consider giving it a like to help me grow the channel. Thank you. Moving on, it is important to understand that a villain rarely exists in isolation. Have you ever noticed how some villains can change the behavior of every character around them? It's like that one friend who's so good at poker that everyone else at the table suddenly gets very conservative with their bets. The mere presence of a master manipulator can make everyone second guess their moves. This influence is not just about fear, but about deep psychological and emotional impact they have on others. When a villain enters the scene, heroes and side characters often react in profound ways. Imagine a hero who normally exudes confidence, suddenly second-guessing every decision because of the villain's manipulative presence. Take Littlefinger from Game of Thrones. His influence over Sansa Stark isn't just about fear, it's deeply psychological. Littlefinger manipulates Sansa into mistrusting those around her, planting seeds of doubt and insecurity. This psychological manipulation transforms Sansa from an innocent girl into a very strategic player in the Game of Thrones. Littlefinger's presence changes Sansa's core, affecting her actions and decisions and illustrating how a villain's influence can reshape a character's entire arc. Another example is Voldemort's control over his Death Eaters in the Harry Potter series. His influence is absolute, not through fear alone, but through a twisted form of loyalty, ambition, and belonging. The Death Eaters are willing to commit atrocious acts, not just because they are afraid of Voldemort, but because they are psychologically bound to him. This shows how a villain can manipulate others into becoming extensions of their own evil. When crafting your own villains, think about how their presence affects those around them. A truly creepy villain doesn't just instill fear, they manipulate and control, creating a ripple effect that shapes the entire narrative. In the end, the impact of a villain on other characters is another powerful tool in storytelling. By showing how a villain can alter the behavior and emotions of those around them, you create a richer, more immersive narrative. A villain's presence should be felt in every interaction, every decision, and every moment of fear and doubt. But with all the changes they force upon others, what happens to the villains themselves? What makes a villain's journey as gripping as the hero's? Imagine starting with a seemingly ordinary character, someone who could almost be likable, but as the story progresses, layers of their sinister nature are gradually revealed. This evolution is crucial in maintaining reader engagement and adding even more depth to your narrative. Think of it like peeling an onion, but instead of tears from the fumes, you get chills from the reveals. Take Anakin Skywalker's transformation into Darth Vader in Star Wars. Anakin begins as a promised Jedi, but through a series of tragic choices and manipulations, he descends into darkness. Each step of his journey is marked by loss, anger, and ultimately the complete abandonment of his former self. This gradual transformation is what makes his story so compelling, even though some of the execution in Star Wars Episode 3 was a bit rushed. When developing your villain, think about their backstory. What events in their past shaped them into the antagonist they are now? Was it a betrayal, a tragic loss, or perhaps an insatiable thirst for power? These elements add complexity to your villain, making them more than just a one-dimensional evil force. But as mentioned, revealing the layers of a villain's character gradually is key. Instead of dumping their entire backstory at once, drip-feed information through subtle hints and significant moments. This keeps the readers curious and invested, always wanting to know more about what makes the villain tick. For example, consider a villain who starts off as a trusted ally to the hero. Over time, small signs of their true nature begin to surface. A cold glance, a cryptic remark, a questionable action. These clues build up, creating a sense of dread as the hero and the reader slowly realize the depth of the villain's corruption. A well-crafted villain evolves, revealing new depths as the story progresses. Think about how you can show their transformation through their actions, dialogue, and interactions with other characters. Perhaps they start using more ruthless tactics, or their speech becomes more ominous, reflecting their inner change. Anakin Skywalker's story is a perfect example of this evolution. His transformation into Darth Vader is marked by pivotal moments. His mother's death, his fears for Padme's safety, and Palpatine's manipulations. Each event peels back another layer, revealing the darkness within. So when crafting your villain, think about their evolution. How do they change over the course of the story? What events shape their descent into darkness? Use these elements to create a villain whose journey captivates and horrifies, keeping your readers hooked till the very end. Now, unfortunately, evil doesn't just exist in stories. Some of the creepiest villains are inspired by real events and people. So drawing from reality can add a chilling layer of authenticity to your characters, making them even more terrifying. Imagine a historical figure so ruthless that their very name sends shivers down your spine. History is filled with tyrants and criminals whose actions are more horrifying than any fiction. Think of Vlad the Impaler, whose brutal reign inspired the legend of Dracula. His real-life cruelty provided a foundation for one of the most iconic villains in literature. Psychological studies offer another rich source of inspiration. Understanding fear and manipulation can help you create villains who feel real and unsettling. For instance, the concept of the Dark Triad, narcissism, Machiavellism, and psychopathy, explains why certain personalities are adept at manipulating and instilling fear in others. Imagine a villain who embodies all these traits. They charm their way into positions of power, manipulate those around them without remorse, and show a complete lack of empathy. This type of character is not just frightening, but disturbingly realistic actually. So make sure to use these traits when creating your own villain. Folklore then is another treasure trove of creepy villain inspiration. Many cultures have stories of malevolent beings that prey on human fears. The Wendigo, a creature from Native American mythology, is said to be a cannibalistic spirit that embodies greed and hunger. Such legends can be adapted to fit the world of your story, adding depth and cultural richness to your villain. Or consider the infamous criminal masterminds of history. Figures like Al Capone or Ted Bundy have become almost mythical in their notoriety. Capone's ruthless control over Chicago's underworld, or Bundy's charismatic yet deadly persona, can serve as blueprints for creating a villain who's both captivating and horrifying. Incorporating real-world elements doesn't just make your villain more believable, it also grounds your story in a sense of reality that can be even more terrifying. Readers will recognize the truths behind the fiction, adding an extra layer of horror to your narrative. So when you're developing your next villain, look to the real world for inspiration. History, psychology, and mythology offer a wealth of material that can help you craft a villain that truly haunts and captivates your readers. Now, having shared with you all these insights, I still have to warn you about certain pitfalls that can completely negate the impact of your creepy villains. Check out this video here where I walk you through 8 antagonist mistakes so you can make sure to avoid them in your story.